known for its charm. Nestled between rolling hills and lush green woods, it was the kind of town that seemed untouched by time. Life here moved at a gentle pace, and the worries of the outside world felt far away. Quaint houses lined the streets, each with its own story. Friendly neighbors gathered on porches, sharing news and laughter as children played in the yards. The atmosphere was peaceful, almost idyllic. It was the kind of place where everyone knew your name, and strangers were simply friends you hadn't met yet. Community events brought everyone together, and secrets were hard to keep. But on April 18th, 2025, that peace was shattered. The morning sun rose over Maplewood, but something felt off. Police cars appeared on sleepy streets, and whispers of worry spread quickly. Local millionaire Edward Thompson vanished without a trace. The news sent shockwaves through the town, and soon everyone was talking about the mysterious disappearance. Edward was a peculiar man. Quiet and reserved, he kept to himself, rarely joining in town festivities. Some said he was brilliant, others thought him odd, but all agreed he was harmless. His large Victorian house stood on a hill overlooking the town, its windows always shuttered, its gardens wild and overgrown. The house was as much a mystery as its owner. It was a grand old place, filled with antiques and memories. Every room told a story, and the walls seemed to whisper secrets from the past. But lately, something had been different about Edward. He'd become even more reclusive than usual, rarely seen outside, and neighbors noticed the lights in his house burned late into the night. Neighbors rarely saw him leave the house. The once lively home now seemed silent, its doors and windows closed to the world. He'd hired a local handyman, Joe, for a big basement renovation. The project was supposed to take weeks, and Joe was there almost every day. Joe was a trustworthy young man, always willing to lend a helping hand. He was well liked in town, known for his honesty and hard work. He'd been working at Edward's house for weeks, but even he hadn't seen Edward in days. The house felt emptier than usual, and Joe began to worry. Then Edward's housekeeper, Mrs. Davies, made a chilling discovery. The house was empty. Edward was gone. She searched every room, calling his name, but there was no answer. His phone went straight to voicemail, no matter how many times she tried. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. His car was still in the garage, untouched. There were no signs of a hurried departure, no clues to where he might have gone. The only sign of his presence was an unfinished cup of tea on the kitchen counter, still warm when Mrs. Davies found it. It was as if Edward Thompson had simply disappeared, leaving behind only questions and a town full of worry. Edward Thompson was a man of mystery. He'd made his fortune in tech, selling his company years ago. He moved to Maplewood seeking a quiet life. He never spoke about his past, and the townsfolk respected his privacy. However, whispers about hidden fortunes and secret lives followed him like shadows. His current project, the basement renovation, was shrouded in secrecy. He'd instructed Joe to seal off the basement. No one was allowed entry. Edward claimed he was building a workshop, a place to indulge his love for woodworking, but the level of secrecy seemed excessive for a simple hobby. Joe, being a man of his word, never questioned Edward's instructions. He diligently followed Edward's plans, sealing the basement door with a heavy reinforced door. He even installed a new high-tech lock at Edward's request, a lock that required a fingerprint scan to open. As days turned into nights, the mystery deepened. The police were baffled. There was no sign of forced entry, no struggle. It was as if Edward had simply vanished into thin air. The investigation took a turn when Edward's financial advisor, Miss Anderson, arrived from the city. Miss Anderson was a sharp, no-nonsense woman. She revealed a shocking detail. A significant amount of money, millions in fact, was missing from Edward's accounts. The money had been withdrawn in cash just days before his disappearance. The withdrawals coincided with the start of his basement renovation. The news spread through Maplewood like wildfire. Had Edward planned his disappearance? Was he hiding somewhere, living off his secret stash, or was there something more sinister at play? The idyllic peace of Maplewood had been shattered. In its place was suspicion, fear, and a growing sense of unease. The disappearance of Edward Thompson and the missing millions quickly became the only thing anyone in Maplewood could talk about. It was as if the whole town had been swept up in a storm of rumors and speculation, with every street corner and coffee shop buzzing with the latest theory. Theories ran rampant, each one more outlandish than the last. Some said Edward had been kidnapped by a secret organization. Others whispered about debts and double lives. It seemed like everyone had their own version of the story, and nobody could agree on what was true. At the heart of all the gossip was the sealed basement in Edward's old house. That door, locked tight and shrouded in mystery, became the symbol of everything the town didn't know. What was Edward hiding down there? People wondered if the answer to the whole mystery was just behind that door. Was it just a workshop, like he always claimed? Or was it something far more sinister? Some imagined secret experiments, others thought of hidden treasures. Some folks whispered about a hidden vault filled with gold, jewels, and maybe even stacks of cash. The idea of a fortune hidden right under their noses was too tempting for many to ignore. Others spoke in hushed tones about a secret room, a place where Edward might have staged his own disappearance, leaving behind a trail of confusion and unanswered questions. The lack of evidence only fueled the speculation. With no clues, no notes, and no sign of Edward, the townspeople's imaginations ran wild. The police had actually obtained a warrant to open the basement, but the high-tech lock Edward had installed was no ordinary security measure. It was sophisticated, almost over the top for a small town like Maplewood, and it left even the officers scratching their heads. It really seemed Edward had been preparing for something big. He'd upgraded his security, changed his routines, and kept to himself more and more in the weeks before he vanished. Joe, racked with guilt and worry, tried to recall any detail that might help. He replayed every conversation, every odd moment, searching for a clue he might have missed. He remembered seeing Edward carrying large, heavy bags down into the basement late at night, always glancing over his shoulder as if he feared being watched. He'd heard strange noises coming from downstairs, clanking, scraping, and the occasional muffled thud. Sometimes it sounded like metal scraping against metal, echoing through the quiet house. His gut told him something wasn't right. The unease grew with every passing day, gnawing at him whenever he tried to sleep. But, what could he do? He was just one man, caught in the middle of a mystery that seemed bigger than anything he'd ever faced. He was just the handyman, after all, never expecting to be at the center of Maplewood's greatest secret. After days of work, the police finally managed to open the basement door. The townsfolk held their breath as the heavy door swung open, revealing a sight that was both, underwhelming and perplexing. The basement, far from being a secret lair or a treasure trove, was surprisingly organized. Shelves lined the walls, meticulously arranged with tools, jars filled with screws and nails and labeled containers. A workbench stood in the center, spotlessly clean. The only unusual feature was a large steel door built into the far wall. It was even more secure than the basement door, with multiple locks and reinforced steel. The police, with Joe's help, managed to open the steel door. Inside, they found a small empty room. The walls were bare concrete, the floor dusty and undisturbed. There was no sign of Edward, no hidden treasure, no indication of what he might have been hiding. The room was completely empty, save for a single, solitary object in the center of the floor. The object in the center of the room was a simple wooden box, about the size of a shoebox. Its unassuming appearance belied the weight of secrets it might contain. The box sat alone, drawing the attention of everyone present, as if it were the silent witness to a story waiting to be told. It was crafted from cedarwood and had a faint, pleasant aroma. The scent lingered in the air, evoking memories of old attics and forgotten keepsakes. The smooth grain of the wood suggested it had been made with care, perhaps even by hand, and preserved for years. The police carefully opened the box, their flashlights illuminating its contents. Every movement was deliberate, as if they feared disturbing something fragile or sacred. The room seemed to hold its breath as the lid creaked open, revealing what lay inside. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was a photograph. The velvet lining was deep burgundy, its plush texture protecting the photo as if it were a precious jewel. The image itself was slightly curled at the edges, hinting at its age. It was a family portrait, old and faded. The colors had softened over time, but the faces were still clear enough to recognize. There was a warmth to the image, a sense of closeness that seemed almost out of place in the context of a police investigation. It depicted a much younger Edward, beaming at the camera, arm in arm, with a beautiful woman and a young boy. Their smiles were genuine, capturing a moment of happiness frozen in time. The photograph seemed to whisper of better days, of a family once whole. The woman had the same piercing blue eyes as Edward, while the boy, who looked to be about 10, had a mischievous glint in his eye. There was a striking resemblance between them, a family bond that was unmistakable even decades later. On the back of the photograph, written in elegant cursive, were the words, Edward, Emily and Ethan, summer of '98. The handwriting was graceful, almost artistic, suggesting someone who took pride in marking the memory. It was a small detail, but it added a layer of intimacy to the discovery. The discovery of the photograph only deepened the mystery. It was as if the box had been left behind as a clue, a silent message from the past. The investigators exchanged glances, each wondering what secrets this family portrait might reveal. Who were Emily and Ethan? Where were they now? Had they played a role in Edward's disappearance, or were they victims of circumstance themselves? The questions multiplied with every new detail. And what was their connection to Edward's disappearance? Was this a simple case of a missing person? Or was there a deeper, more personal story unfolding beneath the surface? The photograph hinted at relationships and histories that had yet to be uncovered. The police investigation now had a new lead, but it was a lead that seemed to raise more questions than answers. The photograph was both a clue and a puzzle, pointing toward a family secret that might be at the heart of the case. The mystery of the missing millionaire had just gotten a whole lot more intriguing. With the discovery of the box and its contents, the investigation had taken a turn, one that would force everyone involved to look closer at the ties that bind and the secrets families keep hidden for years.
Disclaimer. The crime stories shared on this channel are fictional and created purely for entertainment purposes. Viewer discretion is advised, as the themes may still include sensitive or suspenseful content. Watch as I bring you thrilling tales well. Thanks for watching. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss an upload.